Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Today we have a special day. This is one of those things that I only come across one of these, like never. So it's one of those very exciting things for me when I got it. It's one of those, biking historical pieces. And if you've been in the industry for as long as I have, you'll know what this is. And if not, you're going to learn something pretty cool about how mountain biking and road biking started or was evolving in the 90s, and parts of that it was become today. What's really cool is what I found out is a nice high-end steel. There's a thing of the feel of steel that people still love riding. I as well is included with that group. So let's dive in. What we have here is a Bontrager Road Lite. Bontrager parts currently are being made from Trek. It's a subsidiary, a branding, if you will, of what Trek provides, like gloves, clothing, parts, wheels, anything and everything. Trek is branded the Bontrager name, and Keith Bontrager is still actively involved, but back in the beginning of his days of Keith Bontrager, he had a plant in Santa Cruz, I believe, California, and that's when Trek acquired him, or they merged purchase kind of thing, along with other companies that Trek purchased. But this one, I'm pretty much sure it was built in Santa Cruz, hand built in the US, which a lot of Bontrager mountain bikes after were until they stopped making the line in Waterloo, Wisconsin. But this was actually made in the facility of Santa Cruz. Interesting story about this beauty. This actually came from a lady that had it, original owner, and she was actually given this bike as a race bike back in the mid 90s. So in the California circuits, she actually raced on this thing. And all those years now, it's become, over the time of a lot of bikes, it became a trainer. So at first glance, and this is just going to be a few minutes overview of the bike, and I'll probably have another video on a little more detailed pieces when I have it stripped down. But when you look at a bike, when I'm buying a used bike, that kind of thing, there's a lot of things you're going to need to replace right off the bat, sometimes at first glance. Obviously, this one needs new bar tape. The cable and housing is something of this age probably should be replaced with a bit cleaner and smoother shifting. But the biggest catcher, and she also told me this as well, at the time of purchasing it, which I already knew, which is nice when people are disclosing everything about the bike, especially since they've had it since the beginning or they've had it for a while. This one has trainer tires put on it, and usually you'll see the trainer tire, and it'll be stamped trainer tire only on the rear. It goes on those rollers. But this one has the front trainer tire, which goes on those front and rear rollers. So you'll see, like on some race videos or so forth, a pre-warm up. Those are tricky things, but you got to balance on them on your bike, and you just ride and you roll on them. And that's why she has the front roller here. So when I start stripping this down, replacing parts, that's the first thing to go is the tires. I'll be putting on different tires, if not new tires, as well as cables and housing. And this has kind of a, it's like the wheels have been upgraded to more of a modern wheel. It's kind of nice. The shifting has definitely been upgraded from the older 600 Shimano, which used to be, that's a precursor to the Ultegra that you see today. So it has a mix, and it's a little bit newer Ultegra here. So it did some part swap and so forth, which is pretty common on a bike this age. But anyhow, I have some extra bits, and I'm going to be upgrading this baby to a Dura-Ace drivetrain. It's going to be the same 9-speed older stuff, but it's going to be a little bit newer than what's currently on it, a little bit lighter, a little bit smoother. Also with Dura-Ace brakes to give it a little more of that flair. When I first saw this bike, I was thinking, well, this is a great opportunity to, strip it down and sell the frame on eBay. And it's like, I used to do that early 2000s, and kind of, a little part of my soul would die every time I did it, because I'm not building, I'm taking things apart. So for me to put this back together and actually enhance it, even though it might cost me a little bit more, I may not get that out of the value of selling it. And unfortunately, it's a little too short for me, or I'd be riding it myself. I think it's like either 54 or 56, and I'll have to do some research on actually the frame specking or frame geometry of that particular time period. But anywho, it's going to turn out to be a pretty awesome bike. So, you know, those kind of things when you're looking at new bike or used bikes to purchase for yourself, you know, keep in mind. I mean, this has what they call is a threaded headset instead of the A headset. They do make a conversion. I may just keep the original stem on there for now, but if somebody decides if they wanted it to be converted to an A headset system and bring it up higher and have more opportunity, more options to switching out the stem, that is possible for sure. But anywho, it's like one of those things I'll have to switch out and find a new bottom bracket for it. But you know, I have a nice lightweight Dura-Ace crankset. It's a little bit worn and tattered, but the teeth are really good still on it. I also have a nice Dura-Ace rear derailleur 9-speed. That's the newer version before they switched to 10. Also got a nice pair of Dura-Ace brakes to put on there. And of course I have a Dura-Ace front derailleur. This chain has stretched a little, so I used my chain checker and checked a couple spots on it. And I'm at close to 0.75 on this, so I figured since I'm switching out all the parts anyway, that's a good thing to go. I'll have to test this cassette. I might have to switch out the cassette too if it's worn. As a rule of thumb, when you're looking at chains and cassettes, that's a whole different subject in itself. But usually you can go through 2 chains to 1 cassette, and it depends how many times they switch this out. And when you buy and used, you really don't know. So it's kind of a trial and error, unfortunately. They did have a chain or a cassette checker out there that kind of checked your teeth. Honestly, those don't work really for anything. And the only truth is putting on a new chain, take it for a test ride, put a lot of pressure on each gear, like climbing up a hill. And if it skips or pops, that means the new chain does not align with the teeth because the teeth itself is worn out. So, and that'll cause that chain the chain to jump, that kind of thing. But anywho, this is a pretty awesome bike. You know, one of the original Keith Bontragers, hand welded, kind of nice little job. And once I have it stripped down, there's a couple of little gusseting pieces that you can't see right now because it's, well, number one, dirty, second, all the parts are still on it. That is attention to detail back in the day where it's like, ooh, we do this to the frame to make it a little stronger, or that kind of deal. And you carry that over to the road bikes, which you didn't really see that much of it. You saw it on aluminums because aluminums need that support, but the steel really didn't at some point. But you know, he had his little tricks that he put into it. I want to say it's gimmicky, but it was kind of one of those things like, oh, that's kind of a neat little feature that he did. But anyway, I will be diving into this in the next video. You will see some extra little details. So hang tight and I'll have another video coming shortly. Thank you.